Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm back with another one. This one is actually very, very near and dear to my heart. I'm going to tell you that everything you've ever been told from the time that you were born is a lie.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is 𝗪𝗁, a Bitcoin and crypto OG since 2012. I quickly understood that Bitcoin and its underlying technology would change the world, so I went all in. I've built, invested, and advised many projects in the space and consider myself an expert generalist. In 2018, I became very concerned about the misinformation going around the cryptosphere and felt that someone needed to speak up, educate, and assist the space in evolving in the best possible way. I made a decision that I would be more public, speak out against misinformation, educate the world on the most important things about Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain. I've been traveling the world, speaking at conferences, and working with the best minds in the space to innovate the systems that we grew up with in order to improve the quality of life for the global citizens of Earth. Welcome to my channel.
My name is 𝗪𝗁. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. And if you would please like and subscribe, that would be great. And tap that bell, that would be super appreciated. All right, so I'm going to start off with my philosophy on... let me start off and tell you that we are building a project called House of 𝗬𝗏, which is a co-working, co-living blockchain hub. And the goal is to have 20 or 30 of these things around the world. And what it will be is the goal is long-term living, like-minded individuals, kind of like a hippie commune, but instead of everyone having to just like make babies and like leave zero carbon footprint, our goal would actually be having a common purpose, building really disruptive technology in order to make the world a better place, right? And the idea is kind of like, Nikola Tesla, how he wanted to build these Tesla coils all over the world and give free electricity to the entire world. So I want to build, I call these campuses or power plants that actually, will pump out disruptive technology on a massive level. And, the more people that we have building successful things that can be adopted, the more we infiltrate local communities that actually want to use this stuff, the quicker that we'll have a world that is transparent and trusted and governed by blockchain and DAO structures, which is this decentralized autonomous organization, right? And so, when I was in my teens, I guess, I didn't really like school. I had no intention to go to university, but I got really obsessed with learning how to learn and also how to be the architect of my own life, right? And so, I started reading all of these like self-help books, right, on how to make money and how to influence situations to get what you're looking for out of that, how to manipulate things, not in a bad way, but just in a way that's is a win-win. Let me go back to the very, very beginning, right? So we are all told from the time that we're born about this fairy tale life, right? We watch Disney movies and things like that as a kid, where you have, this guy and this girl, and they fall in love, and then they have a baby or two, and they have to buy this house, and they live a happily ever after life, right? And like that idea, we see it succeed very, very infrequently in the real world, at least in the Western societies, right? And this whole thing, when I started paying attention to the divorce rates and then also just observing as a young adult or a late teen, observing people around me, adults and things like that seemed to be unhappy, very, very unhappy. And that's, to me, that didn't make any sense. Like, on a massive level, most people on Monday wake up and they're like, shit, I have to go to work, and there's nothing they'd rather do than hit the snooze button and go back to sleep, right? That is a messed up way of living. Like, you should wake up in the morning and be like, hell yeah, I get to do what I want to do today. And you should wake up excited for the day. That's living life, right? And so, something is broken, something is wrong, right? And if what you do all day is you go, you wake up, you go to your shitty job, you hate your job, and then you get off work, and then you're frustrated because you don't like your job, you go home to your wife or husband, and they did their shitty day at their shitty job, and then you guys are both in the same little box every single day. you're going to take those aggressions out on each other, and that's going to become a dysfunctional household, right? It's just nothing else to do. You're not out there doing what you want to do. You're not building something. You're not monetizing your passion, right? And part of this is all about monetizing your passion. So so why do we have this? Why does this world exist like this, right? Let me go back again, back to the youth, right? So we don't really have a choice, right? We're born, and then we get these vaccinations, right? Which, like, thank God my mom didn't let me get them. She fought tooth and nail, and everyone's like, oh, you need to get vaccinated, otherwise you're going to get everyone else sick. Well, if you're vaccinated or your kids are vaccinated, what are you worried about, right? It should be a choice. We shouldn't have to be forced to be vaccinated. Who knows what's in those things? And really, I've never been super sick. I've got a super strong immune system, and I've never been vaccinated. And I'm not scared. I don't take malaria tablets in Thailand or anywhere else I've traveled. Like, I'm not worried about it. So, and I'm sure I'm better off. I'm sure my immune system is better off because of that. So that's the first thing that happens when you're very young, right? And then we start going to school. And I think schools are vastly inadequate, right? And to start off, or to go back a little bit, when I say everything that we've ever been told is a lie, well, it was by your parents, it was by your teachers, it was by anybody really, who preached this idea of what the standard of living is. And they weren't doing it intentionally. They were just doing it because this is the way that everybody does things. So we need a vastly different school system, right? Because it is incredibly antiquated. Like, it is such a waste of time to go to school and force a kid to learn something that they don't want to learn. Why? Because they're not going to want to learn it. They're not going to learn it. They might learn how to memorize something in order to pass a test, maybe. But testing's not a very efficient way of testing someone's intelligence anyway, is it? Right? So I believe that the way that we need to redo school is that, in the House of 𝗬𝗪, what we'll be building, like what I want to do, and the idea is not super detailed yet, but I think from a very high level, the way that we should be educating kids is, one, learn how to learn how to figure things out, right? If you can learn how to learn, you can do anything. And now that we have vastly infinite knowledge on the internet, and you can look up anything, you can learn how to do anything online for free, pretty much. Right? And if you want to take like a really highly organized, highly academic class online, you can do that for super, super cheap also. Right? So, and, like, there's so many things that we had to go through in school to learn that we didn't need to learn. And we never used it or applied it in life. Like algebra, right? I don't think I've ever used algebra as an adult, right? But now, some of you might argue that, hey, we should actually be learning algebra because it helps you critically think or helps your brain develop. Well, there's other ways to do that. And if somebody wants to do a career or something that they're interested in that involves algebra, they're going to want to learn how to do that because it's going to be part of what they're building, what they're doing. And then they'll be motivated to do that, and then they'll learn on their own, right? It's just not needed to know all these different things. So the school system, right? So one, learn how to learn. Two, teach kids how to monetize their passions, and then teach them how to scale that as large or as small as they want to, depending on what their lifestyle demands. So, I have always, all my businesses I've ever done have been led by this idea of something that I've been interested in, my passion, right? Of anti-aging, reverse aging, and then it was crypto, blockchain, right? So these things just first interested me, and then I figured out how to monetize them. And I learned how to scale that. And every day I get to wake up and I get to do something I'm very, very interested in and exciting. And when I wake up, it's like, shit, let's go do this thing, And it doesn't matter what it is that you're interested in. If you're passionate about something, you're going to be able to draw attention to other people who see you're passionate in that thing, and maybe they're not as passionate, but they like that thing that you're interested in. And then they're going to look at you as like an industry leader because you're so passionate about that thing and you know so much about it. And you can teach other people, you can lead other people, you can build in that category, whatever the case may be. Right? So that is about education, right? And let's not even get into university and college. Like, that is incredibly unnecessary, right? So we go to school, right? And by the time we're done with school, we're 18. And then we're told we're going to need to go to university so we don't be a dummy. Now that you have to take out student loans and you have to pay, your $100,000-$200,000 in debt. If you want to go get something like a major in something, like a MBA or whatever, now, and let's say you want to go out and be a doctor or a lawyer, right? Now you're out of university with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt that you can never ever write off and never ever forgive, and you're like almost 30 years old, and you're in debt, and now, yes, you have this degree, and now you can go get a job, right? But you can't start at the top doing something. You got to start as somebody's bitch, right? So if you're an attorney, you go start as like, an intern for a year or something like that, and then after that you work your way up to like a junior associate, and then after that, maybe you make like then now we're talking about 35 years old, and then you make like a junior partner or something like that. Okay, now you're getting approaching 40. And then maybe when you're 40 years old, 42 years old, then you can be a partner, and then like maybe you're making really good money, but now you're just starting to pay back student loans. So then you go a couple more years, now you're 47. Okay, now you're all paid off, and now you're making really good money, making, $250,000, $500,000 a year. However, you are working harder than ever. You've got a firm to run. You're working 60 hours a week, and you're old already, when somebody else could have started something when they were 14, 15 years old, and if they were passionate about it, created some business out of it, and been making that kind of money by the time they were 18 or 20 years old, and then you still have the whole rest of your life to live. So that is my idea of like, I think, I really do not believe in university and college. I think maybe under certain circumstances, maybe, right? But really, you can learn anything you want to do on the internet, and that's what I believe that we should be doing. Okay, now let's talk about this idea of community and living, right? So we have a lot of unhappy, dysfunctional people as adults. Antidepressants, suicide, lying, deceit, backstabbing, cheating, divorce, right? It is like everybody that knows is going through this, or knows somebody's going through this, whatever. It is rampant. So why is this? Right? Well, back before we had infrastructure, and before we had residences, and before we had neighborhoods and residential things and houses and in apartments, things like that, when we were just a bit more primitive, humans lived in tribes. We were communal. Why did we do that? Because it was much easier to survive in a tribe or community than it was as an individual. And as we evolved, we got very, very independent, right? And we're proud of that. We're proud of our independence. But sometimes, you got to wonder, is too much independence a good thing? So when a couple has a baby, that is a massive responsibility and a huge life change. Most people, say that like once you have a baby, your life is pretty much changed forever. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? What I think, what if we go back to living in more communities? So my idea is, okay, I'll give you an example of why this is something that I've been thinking is maybe the right way to live, right? So back in 2016, the beginning of the year, I actually retired in a way. Like, I became financially free. I never had to work again a day in my life if I didn't want to. And I took some time off. I wasn't sure if I was going to retire or what, but I had been working my ass off for a long, long time. I was exhausted. I took some time off to focus on relationships and my health, things like that. But it turned out that those 2 years were some of the most destructive years of my life. I was just bored, and all I wanted to do was talk about crypto and Bitcoin. However, I was surrounded by friends and family, people that I loved and cared about, but nobody wanted to talk about the things I wanted to talk about. All I wanted to do was talk about like how to change the world and blockchain and crypto and blah, blah, blah. But this was 2016, 17, and I've been telling everybody I know, friends and family, since 2012 or 13 about this stuff, and they were just sick of hearing about it. Nobody wanted to hear about it anymore. And I didn't want to talk about the boring things that they wanted to talk about. Drama, sports, reality TV, things like that, like the shitty news. So even though I was surrounded by people that loved and cared about me, I felt incredibly isolated and frustrated and got a bit depressed. So I decided that I needed to go back and I just felt like I had to go to a conference, right? I had to be back in a community of people that I could talk to about things, talk to about people that could relate to me. And so I went out to Chiang Mai, and I went to a conference, Tokenomics. And the second, I got there a couple days early, and I got invited by the conference organizers to go to a brunch. And there was like 12 of us there. And the second I sat down with everybody, and I was able to like talk about memes and Bitcoin and crypto and like things like, and everybody just kind of knew what I was talking about and related and want to hear what I had to say. A massive world of frustration and all this stuff just kind of lifted off my shoulders. I mean, that was a massive relief, and I just had to be in, I just instantly felt at home, right? So I was only supposed to be in Chiang Mai for like 5 days and fly back, but I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to leave that environment. I was around people that I could laugh with and we can relate, and it was just amazing. It felt really, really good, like I was at home. And so actually, I ended up traveling, and going from conference to conference to conference in 2018 and most of 2019, because I loved being in this environment, right? But traveling around the world all the time is exhausting and it's not sustainable. So this is where my idea of like maybe what we need to do is create a community that was on the ground somewhere with like-minded individuals and building something together with a common purpose, right? Because if you choose where you want to live, you can choose your house or your apartment or your condo, but you can't choose your neighbors, right? And you want to be surrounded by people that are like-minded. So anyway, so this is this idea of being able to live in some type of community with like-minded individuals with a common purpose. And so now go back to this example of the young couple having a kid, right? Imagine if this a community exists and you live in it, and there's 200 people there, and everyone's like close, like a family, and this young couple has a kid. All of a sudden, you've got 200 aunts and uncles, godmothers, godfathers that like love this child, right? And they would all love to take care of it and watch it at any time, most of them, right? So if mom and dad want to go out to dinner, they want to go out for a party, they want to go on a vacation for a week or to a conference or whatever, they can do that, and they don't have to worry about a babysitter or the financial burden of leaving the kid behind to go do something to give them some mom and dad time, some alone time, And that makes a huge world of difference, because all of a sudden you can have a child without bearing all the responsibility on just you too, and you don't have to sacrifice your careers and your goals and things like that, like you might have before. So another thing too, okay, so like that's about living, community, and and I also believe that like one more thing about family is like when you're not bored to death at work all day long, when you have something that you love to do, and your significant other loves to do that too, you guys are busy and you're doing cool things and you're collaborating, and you don't have time to get bored and like just shit on each other, right? Like you do, and you don't have to come back to this like home where you're isolated from everyone else and you just have no social life. If you live in this community, you get to interact with everybody that you're interested in. You have family dinners and things like that, and like it just changes the whole dynamic. There's a lot of reason that people just get in fights with each other is because they're bored and they're frustrated from work and other personal things. They take it out on each other. That mostly goes away in something like this. Sure, there's going to be little quarrels and drama a little bit here and there, but for large in part, it's a lot different like that. How do I know? Because we had a community like that. Check out House of 𝗏. We have a video from when we had a community. So anyway, so another thing, like the government, right? So I've always been someone who's been very aware of the way the world works. I wouldn't say that I'm a full-blown conspiracy theorist. However, I am aware of the way that the world works, and I do ask questions about things that don't make sense. So if you don't know, the monetary system in the United States and other central bank run countries is a system built on debt, right? So the Federal Reserve prints money, lends it to the government, and then they give them Federal Reserve bonds, and then we have to pay them back. So for every dollar that's lent to us, we have to pay back $1 and some change, which is impossible to do, because if you lend you $1, how do you give them back more than $1 if that doesn't exist? So I've been very aware that the dollar runs everything, and that the United States is predominantly just a big face for the people that run the world. Call them the elite, the globalist, whatever. The people that have all the money. Because as long as we have the ability to lobby in Washington, then we will not have the ability to have a true democracy. We will not have the ability to have transparency or anything where it matters who's in office, because most people can be bought, and most people are when it comes to Washington. So, when I was 18, I started traveling a bunch, and when I was 18 and started traveling, or actually 17, at that time, less than 2% of Americans had passports, right? And so everywhere I went, people wanted to know who I voted for because I was American. They were curious. American politics are so interesting to other people, especially being American. And people would say, well, who'd you vote for? And I just always said, listen, I never voted before. I don't vote. And people would just think, oh my God, you have that's such a privilege, and you don't know. Like, what people don't understand is it doesn't matter who I voted for. I mean, I didn't vote for anybody, but even if I did, it wouldn't matter. Nothing ever changes in my life or the world when there's a new president in office, right? Never have I once been affected by whoever's in office. I've never felt it personally different, and the rest of the world has never felt it different, right? It is just a puppet. Whoever's in office is a puppet. And so, and also, I grew up in California, which is a democratic state, and in the states we have electoral college. So if you were in someone like California, it doesn't matter who you vote for because it's a democratic state, and it's always a democratic vote. So it really doesn't matter who I voted for. But even if I lived in a swing state, I still wouldn't vote because it doesn't matter, right? And this is was my biggest frustration with the world. I've always felt powerless, and it was really frustrating. I wanted to do something. I was really frustrated that there was so much of the world suffering, and we are a very immature species, right? We are still on this planet in 2020. We are still starving and killing each other. What the hell? There's a reason that we don't see visitation from aliens yet, because they take a look at us and they're like, holy shit, you guys need to grow the hell up before we come say hi to you. You guys are crazy. And we are, right? We have so much resources on this planet. There's so many really wealthy people, and then there's still people who are just in pure poverty and just starving. That is messed up, man. And it's not a fair world. I would love to see a world where every child that was born on this planet had an equal opportunity, right? And we can get there. And so I've always felt powerless, and it just makes me somewhat laugh, and somewhat just be confused, and somewhat just what's going on? When people, my aunts, if you're listening to it, hello out there, if I happen to pop on Facebook, which I don't hardly ever, but if I do, I will see these conversations about politics that just blow my mind. People get so fired up about it. Why? Why do you waste your energy and time? It doesn't matter. It is a show. It is a puppet show. It is a show to make you feel like a voter, like you have some type of power in what happens, but you don't. Nobody does, right? It is all planned out. It is all ran by money and lobbying, and it doesn't matter. Small things might change. Little things might change. But on large in part, nothing really changes. Then, in 2012, I discovered Bitcoin. And in 2013, WikiLeaks started leaking documents about the American government that were really embarrassing to America. And WikiLeaks is a nonprofit that ran off donations. And as soon as they started doing this, the powers that be started putting pressure on the payment gateways like PayPal, Western Union, MoneyGram, the banks, SWIFT, Visa, MasterCard. All of them stopped allowing donations to WikiLeaks. They were trying to suffocate them, trying to drown them out, so they couldn't continue operations. And then someone said, psst, check out Bitcoin, right? And then guess what happened? Money started flowing in again. Ooh, I saw that and I realized this is something huge. All of a sudden, I felt empowered, like I could do something, right? And so this is when I jumped into it hardcore, and I started building things in blockchain and Bitcoin. I went all in. So there is, and then fast forward to 3 years ago. At this point, I've invested, advised, built different things in blockchain, developed a deep passion for it because I felt like this is a way that could save our world, right? This is a way that could evolve our species to a level where we're not starving and killing each other. And when I got this idea to do these communities, and these communities would also be more than just a community, right? It would also be a way to test out different governance models, running DAOs and running different voting mechanisms, putting things on blockchain, voting on blockchain, things like that. And I want to raise families in here with the education I talked about earlier, right? So imagine that one of these kids grows up in these communities, loved by everybody, and they're around a bunch of brilliant people, right? Because in these would be all intelligent people here working for a common good, all from all over the world, global, all speaking different languages. And these kids grow up and they're friends with everybody. And they start picking up different languages and they get business ideas and they start building cool things, right? And they're not burdened by this bullshit school system. And yes, they have some structure. Yes, they have critical thinking. Yes, they learn how to survive in the wild. Yes, they do cool things, But imagine what that kid is growing up like. Maybe they have a business by the time that they're 13, 14 years old. I know kids that age that do. So now my goal would be to take one of these kids, or a couple of them, put them in a classroom with some kids from America, let them have a conversation about life, broadcast that to the world, and ask who's doing it better, right? Because America and other Western countries are built in systems that were meant to not be allowed to be disrupted. They are undisruptible. People ask me, like, why did you leave America? Because I want to build disruptive shit. And you cannot disrupt this. Okay, imagine this. We can do voting on a blockchain, right? You can give every citizen in America a NFT or a cryptographic token that gives them a right to vote on a blockchain. They could pick exactly who they want to vote for, cast their vote, their token is burned, and it's broadcast publicly in real time. And so no longer do you have this inefficient system where we all have to go stand in line for hours and then hand our paper ballot to some old person, some volunteer, who every time that we have an election, half of the country cries out that we need a recount, right? Because we have a whole bunch of old volunteers counting ballots. Like, how stupid is that? It's ridiculous. So we could have voting on a blockchain easily. We could do it. Shit, I know people that could do it tomorrow. But could you imagine this? Like going to the government and being like, hey guys, I think we should have voting on a blockchain. Oh, that sounds nice, a blockchain. And then be like, hold up, wait a minute. What's this bit about having to be transparent? Yeah, no, we like the way that things are right now. We'll pass on that, right? It is not going to be anytime soon that we can see a voting system on blockchain in someone like America, right? Good luck. So that's why I left, because you cannot do things that are disruptive inside of that system. I would rather go somewhere else, like I have here in Thailand, build a community like I want to, and experiment with government systems or models like this, raise children in the way I described, and then broadcast that to the world and say, look, this is what we're doing, right? This is what we're doing. That's what you're doing. You decide which model you like, what's better. And that's the only way I think that we can really make a huge change. And then let the people decide, right? What they either live the life that you've been living in the systems that have been designed for you that ultimately lead to unhappiness, dysfunctional families, slaved labor, right? Because that's what it is when you have a job. You just go and work for corporations and make them tons of money, and you just get a salary, and you have to work until you're 65 and old, and maybe even longer with Social Security running out now, and you're just a corporate slave, right? And what we're doing is we're monetizing our passions, right? Learning how to learn, doing what you're passionate about, and monetizing that passion, right? And so now you have a community that has kids, really smart, doing really cool things, very happy, adults socializing, having like-minded individuals, collaborating, having family dinners, in a place that has a better quality of life, right? So here is a massive paradigm shift, right? And ideally here, I'm gonna leave you with a kicker. So right now, the government is supposed to be working for the taxpayers, it's not at all the way things are going, right? So one of the things that inspired me to do these communities is a company, a project called Seasteading Institute. And what they're doing is building, or their goal is to build these seasteads, right? These like floating islands in international waters that are like cities, right? Like constructing these cities out there, and in sovereign international water where there's no formal government controlling those areas. And then they want to build these experimental government things, right? Like, and I love that idea, and I wanted to contribute to it. And so this is kind of my goal on land. And so now that, imagine this: imagine a world where each of these, I call them borderless nations, right? So imagine each location has a borderless nation with a different government there, right? Because we all like different things, right? Some people love rules, some people love regulation, they love security, and that just makes them feel fine. And then you have some people like me that don't really like rules, that don't want to be told what to do, that doesn't really like government, that would rather just be in a world with very, very little rules, where maybe the only rules like don't hurt anybody. And then you have everybody in between. So imagine you have let's say that we have 300, 200 borderless nations around the world, all with different governments. And everybody could choose which one they wanted to go to, based on the government system and style that they liked. Now you have a world, but nobody would have to stay there, right? And so what would happen is, if you have one place that's promising all these things in their campaigning for government, and they promise all these things, and then they get into office and they don't keep those promises, everyone's going to find out, and people are going to leave there, and they're going to go somewhere else, to somewhere that isn't lying to them, right? And so now you have a world where you've got governments competing for their citizens. And that is a massive paradigm shift. Imagine that, where every government's thinking, how do I make my economy, my community, better than everybody else's? Competition of governments. Competition is good. Democratizing governments, right? Like, that is a massive paradigm shift. We need a world like that. That's what I'm going for. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. I would love to hear your comments down below. Please let me know what you're thinking. I'll do more content like this. If you like it, please let me know what you think. All right, guys, thank you so much. Take care. See you soon.